The city has had consistent budget problems and is forecasted to have them again in the future. For example, in 2027, the forecasted deficit is $140 million. There was a deficit this year. There was a deficit the year before. What is the solution in either your second term or your first term, and does that involve new taxes? Mr. Harrell, we'll start with you.
Sure, it absolutely does involve new taxes, and my opponent will be quick to talk about progressive taxes. The B&O tax policy, which is probably the smartest policy that the city has seen in terms of taxing the big corporations, was designed again to have more of a progressive approach to what we're trying to do. We also have to look at efficiencies in government. I believe in our next term, we will come up with ideas that we actually have white papers on how to reinvent a leaner, more effective and efficient government as well. So it has to be twofold. Yes, revenues and taxes, but we also have to use our money wisely. The fact is, my opponent, she has no budget experience. My opponent ran a $200,000 budget. Last year they lost $21,000. The year before, $38,000. The year before, $46,000. Zero budget experience, and I think yesterday she said that that's what nonprofits do. That is not a key performance indicator on any organization should have 3 times the capital in the bank. This is big stuff. These are big challenges that we're dealing with. And I've looked at 15 budgets for the city of Seattle. And every year that I've been mayor, I've proposed a balanced budget because we know how to do this. We will look at progressive taxes, of course, but we'd also look at business efficiencies.
Ms. Wilson, to you, responding to Mr. Harrell, as well as your plan for the budget coming into the mayor's office.
Yeah, so I'm proud of the work that I did on the city budget in 2020 on the Jumpstart tax, which again was the reason why the mayor's been able to balance his budget for the last 4 years. And then in 2023, I served on the Seattle Revenue Stabilization Work Group, which was tasked with researching the city's progressive revenue options because we already knew in 2023 that we had a massive structural budget shortfall widening. The work group came out with a report, and I and the Transit Riders Union also published a report with a more extensive list of progressive revenue options. Unfortunately, the mayor's office did nothing with that information, and 2 years later, we had a $250 million shortfall. Now, the B&O tax restructure that the mayor mentioned and that will be on the ballot this fall was actually one of the options in the report that I authored in 2023. So I'm very glad that that is now being used. But it's a couple years too late. And frankly, the budget that the mayor has proposed this year, he talked about a leaner budget, but actually there's a lot of additional one-time spending. Now, a lot of it's good stuff, right? It's an election year. He wants to give his people things. I mean, for example, right, the Lake City Farmers Market, Fresh Bucks program, really great programs, and there's additional money in there for them. But that is one-time money. So the mayor is setting up the next mayor for a fiscal cliff in the next budget where those programs are not going to be able to continue with the current funding scenario. So going forward, we do need to raise new progressive revenue. I support a local capital gains tax. There are several other options in my platform that the city needs to work on developing. And also we need to work at the state level to get more progressive revenue so that we can fund the vital goods and services we depend on.
Mr. Harrell, would you like to respond?
Well, I'm still sort of jarred by her statement, we are giving his people things. I just hope and pray she's not referring to the $80 million reparations package, housing package, anti-gentrification package that I did announce that she does not support. The fact is the Progressive Revenue Task Force that she served on, and I thank you for your service, is the one I convened. And when they had come back with several progressive taxes, income tax, inheritance tax, estate tax, a progressive real estate tax, none of those could be done. They just can't be done. It has to be done in state law. She talks about, my opponent talks about a vacancy tax. That is not a very successful tax. My opponent talks about a capital gains tax. Would be the first city to do that. We've studied that. That could be gained. It doesn't raise a lot of money. So what we've done is this, we've taken a very thoughtful approach to the B&O tax policy we put forth, and we will always take advantage of the progressive real estate, progressive taxes. But we don't have the tools given by the state.
I do want to follow up on the B&O tax because you're right, it does shift a lot of the burden off of small businesses, but because it's based on gross receipts and not income, there are grocery stores that run on very thin margins that are concerned that this new proposal will make an already difficult financial situation more difficult. Both of you have spoken in support of this. I'm curious to hear both of your response to those concerns from thin profit, thin margin businesses. And start with Mr. Harrell.
Sure. What I have my team working on right now is legislation on a state basis. And again, my last answer is saying that the state has only given us so many tools. We have to understand that. What we're looking at right now is legislation to exempt grocery stores from the B&O tax and from any other taxes that could be especially applied to them, such that they can have relief. We realize many of them, for a variety of reasons, have thin margins as well. So that's one thing we could do immediately. We're also making sure that our zoning scheme, where there's a grocery store, making sure that the zoning scheme is such that they can be very, let me back up. The restrictive covenants that we eradicated to make sure that large companies go, that another one can come in and they can't restrict it. And that was a practice they were doing to make sure that competitors are going somewhere else. And so there's a lot of creative things we're doing.
Thank you. Ms. Wilson, can you speak to the concerns of the thin profit margin businesses about the B&O tax proposal?
Yeah, and I mean, it's no question that the B&O tax is not a perfect tool, right? And we have imperfect tools. You know, there actually is something, and this again is in that report that I referred to from 2023 that I authored. There is potentially a way that we can restructure our B&O tax to make it more progressive in that sense by allowing businesses to deduct the cost of goods sold. And there's some complications there because it's hard to figure what the revenue will be. But there is potentially something we can do here in Seattle that I want to look at. And then again, there are additional progressive taxes that wouldn't have that effect that I think the city should explore. A vacancy tax, I actually think that there is a legal way that we can do that. A digital ad tax is another one that I want the city to explore. So we need to look at other options as well. And yes, absolutely, let's work at the state level to try to improve the tools that we have.